Hey, good morning to everybody. Happy Wednesday. It's Daryl here. It is bright and freaking early, man. It's 3 a.m. here in Connecticut on the East Coast. Okay, there's something I want to talk about today. I never heard of this country superstar. I've talked about this before. Here in Connecticut where I live, country music is not a big thing. I've never listened to one country music station or heard one country music song in the 57 years I've lived in Connecticut. I've never heard of Ingrid Andress, but I want to talk a little bit about this. Her rendition of the National Anthem at the Major League Baseball Home Run Derby 2 nights ago. But what I really want to talk about is her Instagram post. And something kind of struck me. I don't know how to describe I was put off by what she said in her Instagram post, and I kind of used empathy to try to figure out why she said this, and I'll talk about that. Also, I've been clean and sober. It was exactly 18 years last month, the last time I was in a rehab or a detox, and I'm very familiar with rehabs and detoxes. I was in and out of over 13 rehabs and detoxes back when I was using. Over a period of about 3 or 4 years. About every 3 months, I would go into a rehab or a detox. And I want to talk about that. Also, my ex-girlfriend who passed away, my soulmate, Audrey, who I talk about often, she passed away 3 years ago on August 5th from COVID. And she was an alcoholic and a former drug addict. And not only was she in recovery for almost as long as I was, but she worked her way up. She was a hard worker, and she worked at a rehab, one of the best rehabs here in Connecticut, in the country. I'm going to mention, it's Mountainside Rehab, Mountainside Treatment Center. I'm going to put the link to it down below. I don't know if I really am supposed to do this but I think it's one of the best treatment centers in the country. It's a little pricey. It's on the pricey side, but I'm going to put the link to that down below. She was actually my ex-girlfriend that passed away, Audrey. She was the employee management. She hired people there. She worked her way up to the top of management at Mountainside Treatment. And all right, let me read you Ingrid Andress's Instagram post. Okay, like I said, I never heard of her before this. Let me say this too. The one thing, I think we all do something very, there's certain things we do good and certain things we don't do good, as far as talent. And one thing I am absolutely terrible at, I mean god awful, is singing. I am a terrible singer. And when I heard Ingrid Andress sing the National Anthem, I know the words to the National Anthem. Believe it or not, I'm a liberal, and I actually know the words to the National Anthem, all the words. And I was like, oh my God, I sing it better than she did that night, And it almost struck me as a Roseanne Barr moment. Like, was she trying to do? It was almost so bad that she was trying to make it bad. But it turns out she claims that she was hammered to the bejesus. And the next day, she put this post on Instagram, and it kind of struck me as one of those famous people that run to rehab when something goes wrong. Their heart's not in it. They just do it to get the heat off them. And that's what this struck me as. This is her Instagram post. I'll have to link this down below, too, so you guys can see her Instagram account and read this yourselves. This is what she said. I am not going to BS you all. I was drunk last night. I'm checking myself into a facility today to get the help I need. That was not me last night. I apologize to MLB, all the fans, and the country I love so much for that rendition. I'll let you all know how rehab is. I hear it's super fun. That's the part that really put me off. What kind of comment is that? I was in and out of detoxes and rehabs. Honestly, I looked at them as a vacation. It's almost, I hate to say this, it's a lot like the movie. If you ever saw Sandra Bullock in 28 Days, rehab, I last time I was there was 18 years ago, but it's a lot like that. That's a really good version of what rehab or detox is like. Let me say this. Let me tell you the difference. When you first go into treatment, you usually go to a hospital or you're taken in by the cops or something like that, and they put you in the hospital. And when you're in the hospital, you go through a detox. It's usually 3 to 5 days, and it's a lockdown. When you're in, you do not leave. You're locked in. It's a mental health / detox facility in most hospitals. I have been to at least 5 of them in Connecticut. Middlesex Hospital, Bristol Hospital, Hartford Hospital, St. Francis Hospital, and there was one other one, at least 5. You do not leave. And then after 5 days, they recommend that you go to a rehab, to follow up treatment or outpatient treatment, and that just never works. That's why I tried that many times. Like, I don't want to go into I don't want to go away for 90 days. I don't, the money, because it is pricey. Even if you have insurance, it's like Mountainside is one of the most expensive treatment centers in the country. It's ridiculously expensive, to be honest with you. And I tried outpatient, and outpatient back 18 years ago, outpatient was like $400 a week for people that didn't have insurance. Which, for somebody that has drug and alcohol problems, $400 a week is just not doable. They'd just rather spend the money on alcohol and drugs. It's almost less sometimes to spend the money on that. Unfortunately, I don't like to say that, but it's the truth. It's not conducive to going, the prices. This is why I talk so much about this on this channel, that there has to be more emphasis on recovery and rehab in this country if you want to stop the flow of this stuff from other countries, from China or Mexico. You need to start in this country where the money starts. Without this money and the demand for it, there's no supply. You need to treat people, and treatment is way too hard to get into. It was hard to get beds 18 years ago because so many people need treatment, and it was ridiculously expensive, and insurance companies hesitate to treat it. If treatment was free or more easily accessible, it'd be a great way to start reducing crime, reducing gangs, reducing the flow of these things into this country, and reducing the power that other countries have over this country, like China, with the flow of this stuff into this country. They are, it's a good way to sedate the population of the United States, really. I'm not taking away the responsibility from the addict, because it's up to every person's choice whether they pick up. It was my fault. I'm the one that chose to pick up in the first place. But the flow of stuff from like China doesn't make it any easier. It makes it a lot easier, or a lot harder. Anyway, okay. When I saw this post from Ingrid Andress, I was trying to figure out why she said this. Is she joking around? Obviously, I don't think she's serious. It's not fun. I think, I tried to use empathy, and I don't know Ingrid Andress, but I'm guessing this is why she said it. She was trying to elicit sympathy. Like she knew there's a lot of anger, a lot of hate, probably directed towards her for mauling the anthem like she did. It almost felt intentional. And like she's saying, like, I'm going to do penance for this now. I'm going right into rehab. I got a problem. And is she serious? I don't think so, because it took me 13 tries. The first time I went for other people. I went to get people off my back. I went to hide. I went because I was all out of money. And by the end, I really wanted help, and I really needed help, and I realized how deep into this problem I was, and it scared me. I didn't think I was ever going to be able to quit. I think she said it, just to elicit sympathy, like, I'm not going to have any fun, this is going to be tough on me, I'm doing the work here, I'm trying to be a better person. That's why I think she said this. I don't know her from Adam or Eve or whatever, and, but, using empathy, why she would say something like this, I think that's why. Okay, like I said, I was in and out of detoxes and rehabs, and I hate to say this, but it was actually like a getaway camp for screw-ups, really. I hate to say that, but that's what it was. My insurance covered it back then, my Teamster insurance, and every 3 months or so, I would run out of money. I would really get in so deep, my family, my house would be torn up. There'd be paraphernalia, trashed. Pictures, adult magazines and videos, and pictures all over the walls from my things I talked about before that I used to do when I was using. All sorts of stuff. Women's underwear. I hate to say that, in my apartment, and I would just take off. I would just leave a note, and I would go into check myself into a detox, and it was like a getaway camp for me. The food is amazing. The food, you can't help but put on weight when you're in a detox. It's really not that bad. Every time I was there, I didn't want to leave. I did not want. I would have begged to stay there. Because once you get to that point where you need to go into rehab or detox, it's not fun anymore. Using drugs or drinking isn't fun anymore. It's like a job, especially when you're a heroin addict like I was. And you build relationships in these detox and rehabs. You run into people. It was always co-ed with women, and me being I'm very sociable with women. I have no problem talking to women and everything, and I would always end up with a girlfriend, more or less, in detoxes or rehabs, which is a very bad idea. Looking back, extremely bad idea. Let me say this: this is one of the biggest mistakes I made, is leaving a detox or rehab with people's phone numbers, or actually leaving the detox or rehab with somebody else. Like I remember telling, this is something you don't want to do if you go to a detox or rehab. Don't tell, when you're ready to leave, don't tell other people you're leaving. Just leave. Don't tell them the time you're going to leave or anything like that. Because every time I mentioned I was going to leave, other patients there said, "Oh, dude," because they knew I had a car. They knew I had transportation. And they would try to check themselves out against medical advice. That was a hard thing to do, especially in detox. You'd have to go against medical advice. And because they'd be like, "Dude, give me a ride home," this or that. Or they'd want to leave with you. And every time I left with somebody, I ended up going straight to the dealer. I didn't even go home. I still had my bags in the back seat of the car. Like, I had a clear plastic bag with all my booties from detox, the socks from the hospital, my clothes in the back seat, and I'd go straight to the dealer with whoever I left with. Do not leave with somebody. Like in the movie 28 Days, she sees one of the people she was there with. If you remember the movie, at the very end, she sees one of the guys that she was in rehab with. After a year, after that amount of time, it might be okay. But I would not recommend keeping any ties with anybody you meet in there. I hate to sound corny, but it's your own journey. It's your own mission. It's your own goal. Once you go into rehab and detox, and when you leave there, you need to leave all the people you met there. You need to leave them to their own goals, to their own struggle with this disease. Making contacts with the people that you were in there with is always a bad idea for me. It always led to relapse. Eventually, every time I left, the doctor would give me a note, because he needed a note to get into methadone clinics here in Connecticut, and I never used it. And after my 13th trip into a detox, the doctor gave me the note, and he told me, he says, "We're not taking. If you come back here again, we're probably not going to admit you, because you've been here, Daryl. How many times have you been here? And it's just not working. Why come back? Why would I take you back in?" This is what the doctor said to me, and it scared the hell out of me. I was burning my bridges. I was at the end of my rope. And the same thing with my family. They were done with me. They did everything they could. They loved me, but they did everything they could. And people were cutting ties, and I realized I was at the end of my rope. I'm getting goosebumps right now. And I actually went to the methadone clinic, and I went there with drugs. I hate to say this, but I actually used in the parking lot before I went into the clinic, to sign up. I hate to say that. But after about 3 weeks there, and being in the program and taking the medication, all of a sudden, I was still buying. I was still going down to the hood and buying, even though I knew that the methadone was working to block the drugs. And I knew I was throwing money away. but I'd still keep doing it. And then one day I was like, I stopped buying it because I was like, I don't need this anymore. And it was like this moment of clarity. I was like, oh my God, I could do this. There's a possibility I could actually get clean and sober. And I relapsed a few times after that, but it helped me. They call it MAT, medically assisted treatment, Suboxone, methadone, and that's what worked for me. That's why I'm here right now. A lot of people talk bad about methadone, but it saved my life. Treatment does work. Recovery is possible. The links will be down below. You guys have a good Wednesday.